So hi everybody, in today's video I want to talk about a book that I read that really had a profound effect on how I understood chronic illness and fatigue. So it's the book by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk called The Body Keeps the Score. So if you join me live, do feel free to say hello, let me know where you are in the world. If you're watching the replay, pop hashtag replay. Your comments and reactions help other people find the video. If you do like the video, do share it with other people. So if you don't know me, my name's Simon Pimenta. I had CFS fibromyalgia for 8-9 years. I went from not being able to walk for 1 minute at times to getting back to life, getting back to work. Last week I went to Germany for a wedding from Wednesday to Saturday, came back, went straight to a festival, spent Saturday, Sunday at a festival having a great time, staying up till 1 in the morning. So that was a massive change, and at one point I could only dream of going to festivals. My friends and family were going, my siblings were going, and I was at home in bed. So Dorothy says good morning from Morecambe. Nice to have you with us, Dorothy. So let's get into this book. I do create lots of content to help people move towards their goals, so do subscribe to my YouTube channel. I've created lots of free content to help you. All right, so let's talk about this book, The Body Keeps the Score. Whilst it's a trauma handbook, I think it has relevance to conditions like ME/CFS, fibromyalgia, long COVID, for some people who are affected by pain, energy, and recognise there's some nervous system dysregulation. And it helps explain why people stay stuck in patterns of exhaustion, flare-ups, emotional overwhelm, even when you're doing everything right. And D. Shepherd says, hi from Albany, New York. Hi there. So, first point I want to make is that trauma isn't just psychological, it's physical. And Penny, hi from Toronto. Nice to have you with us, Penny. So we've got a truly international audience so far. Now I see there are other people on the call, so do feel free to say hello, say where you are in the world. So as I say, part one, trauma is not just psychological, it's physical. And Penny from Nottingham, so hi to you also. So van der Kolk's key idea is that trauma doesn't live just in the mind, it lives in the body. It reshapes the brain and it becomes embedded in the body and the nervous system. So trauma isn't just the event. Okay, it's how we respond to the event. I'm just going to turn my phone off because it's flashing at me. So two people might experience the same event. One might experience trauma and the other might not. How people respond to a potentially traumatic event may relate to their history. For example, whether they've experienced trauma previously. I've done a review of Dr. Gabor Mate's book, When the Body Says No. And one of the things he says is that the research shows that if someone has had trauma in their life, then they're more likely to respond to a traumatic event, for instance, war, and there's research on this, than someone who hasn't. Okay, so history might be a factor, which might affect people's coping mechanisms. So, for example, one person experiencing an upsetting event might withdraw. They might use numbing strategies like drugs, other ways of distracting themselves. Whereas another person's strategy might be to connect with others, sharing their experience, crying, talking, laughing. What's your sense? Where are you on that spectrum between withdrawing and connecting? I recognise that in the past, my strategy was to withdraw, to use distraction strategies that didn't necessarily help me. What about you? Where are you on that spectrum? Do you tend to more towards withdrawing more or to connecting more? So Charlotte, hi from Birmingham. Sebastian, hi from Subotica, planet Earth. Nice to have you with us, Sebastian. So I remember the story of women who were, I think they were from South America and they'd experienced trauma. It might have been from Chile, and they now lived in London, and they got together every week, cooked together, talked, cried, laughed, and they said that they found that very healing. So Charlotte says definitely withdraw and distract. Okay, so it's good to be aware of that pattern. That was certainly my pattern, and I'm learning to connect more. Okay, so thanks for sharing that. I'd love to hear from other people, only if you want to share. So when we experience overwhelming stress, Dorothy says, before I was treated for trauma, I would always retreat, withdraw and disconnect from everyone. Okay, and it sounds like, you're developing new strategies. Let me know if that's the case. So that's good to hear. So yeah, when we experience overwhelming stress, it could be a car crash, long-term neglect, infection, medical trauma. Our survival brain takes over. The parts of the brain responsible for thinking and reasoning, the prefrontal cortex, go offline, and the body gets stuck in fight, flight and freeze mode. In many chronic illnesses, especially those involving fatigue and pain, we see these signs of the trauma: hypervigilance, sensory overload, gut issues, muscle tension, sleep disturbances, emotional shutdown or dissociation. Let me know if those are things that you relate to. So let's see. Tend to withdraw, but also talk to a close friend, which can help put things in perspective. Great, that's great that you do that. Penny, I am learning quite a lot in the past. So don't quite follow what you said there. I'm learning quite a lot in the past. Oh, okay. It may be in the past you did that. Okay. Ellen, hi, Alan. Nice to have you with us. Yes, developing strategies and brain training. I'm learning to connect more, but tend to withdraw and distract. Okay, so it's good to be aware of that pattern. We don't want to judge that. Again, Gabor Mate says these strategies that we develop are strategies that are an attempt to keep us safe. Okay, so people develop addictions, etc. They're strategies to help deal with the pain. We recognise that if someone is addicted to smoking or drinking, then these are potentially problematic. I knew someone who would resort to taking a certain herb, let's say, and they ended up in psychiatric hospital, okay, because of the drug that they were taking. And at one point they were saying how great it was to take this herb, and as I say, they ended up in psychiatric hospital. They had a breakdown. So the body is still reacting as if it's unsafe, even when the danger is past. So those things that I've just described, hypervigilance, sensory overload, etc., are signs that the body can be stuck. All right. Again, let me know which ones of those do you recognise: hypervigilance, sensory overload, gut issues, sleep disturbances, muscle tension, emotional shutdown or dissociation. I actually can recognise that at one point when I had CFS, all of those things were an issue. So the second thing I want to talk about is how the nervous system gets stuck. So Bessel van der Kolk explains that trauma can dysregulate the autonomic nervous system. Instead of moving fluidly between activity and rest, the body gets trapped in survival physiology. So fight, flight, this is sympathetic dominance, where our body is aroused, we can be anxious, hyper alert, wired. And we might get into that state. For instance, if you used to do a sport, if I'm playing football, then that's going to happen. My body is going to generate lots of sensation, etc. I'm going to be in that state, but it's a good, it's a nice, generally, unless I'm losing, it's kind of feels energizing, okay? But when we're just in fight flight, then that can be, if we're in that state for too long, over time that can cause real problems. we can move into that freeze collapse state, dorsal vagal state, where we're exhausted, foggy, disconnected. So it's important to consider that if you are experiencing a chronic fatigue challenge, okay, because it gives a physiological explanation for why rest doesn't feel restful, doesn't always feel restful. Let me know which of these you can relate to. Small stresses can trigger huge reactions. Yep, ticking both of those. Our bodies feel on edge even when you're resting, lying in bed. Actually, what I recognised is sometimes I was lying in bed, but I wasn't resting. I was stressing, okay? Some of us live in that chronic freeze state, or can be triggered into that state by scenarios where we don't feel safe. I remember not so long ago, at the beginning of COVID, having conversations with two friends about COVID and how it was being handled, and we had very different perspectives. I did a degree in human ecology, which is looking at a health in a very holistic way, and they were just looking at things from a very medical perspective. So we had a very different perspective on things. But actually I noticed that I didn't feel really comfortable sharing my perspective, because one of them in particular was being quite aggressive in their opinion, and this had, for me, it had reminders of scenarios when I was younger where it wasn't okay for me to express my point of view, because if it differed from the other person, then I would get criticism. Okay, so that got triggered when we were having these conversations, and I had to say, hey, I think we need to just pause a moment and we need to discuss this in a different way. Okay, and actually things started to change from that perspective. Dorothy says, I like that dis-ease can result in dis-ease if it's long term. Okay, so very useful perspective you're sharing there, Dorothy. So as I say, some of us live in that chronic freeze state. It doesn't mean we're lazy or unmotivated. Our nervous system is trying to protect us, but it's using outdated modes of doing that, which relate to our past. Because when we were younger, we didn't have the strategies, resourcefulness that we needed. Okay? So the third thing I want to talk about is trauma and chronic illness, the hidden link. So in his book, he talks about ACE studies, adverse childhood experience studies, which show a direct correlation between early trauma and adult health problems. So people with high ACE scores, i.e. they've experienced a lot of adverse childhood experiences, are more likely to develop autoimmune disease, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic pain, depression and anxiety, fatigue syndromes. Essentially, the body keeps the score, okay? This isn't to say that chronic illness is just trauma, but more that trauma may play a part in how our bodies respond to stress, infection, recovery. We know from research, and we know from a book that I've got written by Professor Robert Sapolsky that I refer to a lot, is that chronic stress makes it more likely that we get diseases that make us sick. Okay? And actually that stress can hinder recovery. So, for many people, trauma may prime the system to overreact or under repair. Because remember, if we're in a constant state of fight, flight, or even freeze, the body isn't doing important repair work. We need to come out of that state into more regulated state and move into the rest and digest state in order to repair. So Dorothy says, my childhood was severely traumatic. The body definitely keeps the score, and I blame all that trauma for my adult health issues, 100%. So thank you for sharing that, Dorothy. That's brave of you to do that, and generous of you to share that perspective, because I think it can help other people. Because, you know, there was a time when I had no concept that when I got ME/CFS, it might have had its roots in some early patterns. And, with learning more knowledge, I started to make these connections. Some of the reasons I got sick, some of the reasons I was pushing myself and burning out was due to some of the programs that I'd developed, some of the beliefs I had that limited me. When I look back now, and the fact that I was doing a job that was really stressful, I didn't have the imagination to think, actually, this job really isn't suiting me. I was scared of, for instance, leaving this job because I had health benefits, I had permanent health insurance, which meant that when I got sick, I was very lucky that I had a percentage of my salary paid to me each month. So, but with the benefit of hindsight, I should have quit that job. I should have gone and laid on a beach for 3 months in Thailand, swam a lot, ate good food, got my system in repair mode. Okay, so fourth thing I want to talk about is what can help. Okay, now one of the book's arguments is that trauma can't be healed by talking alone. Okay, that's because part of the trauma affects part of the brain that is beyond language. It lives in body memory, in your heart rate, in your breath, in your posture, even your facial expression. You've probably observed people who seem to be carrying their trauma in their body. Some people are very hunched. I've worked with people who say to me, I get a lot of neck pain. And I say to them, do you realise that your body isn't symmetrical? You're hunching your shoulders, your head's to one side, and you're saying that you're experiencing pain in your shoulder. And I say to them, I invite you to drop your shoulders and put your head in a symmetrical position. How does that feel? They say it feels really weird because they're so used to being in that stress posture. Sometimes you might see people and they're literally, their mouth is clenched, and it's almost like they're carrying that tension and that emotion in their body, in their facial expression. Does that make sense to you? Let me know if you've noticed people who kind of are exhibiting in some way some stress. Okay, I always remember this really, really saddened me to see this mum and her daughter. Her mum looked super stressed, as if life was really hard, and the child was, I think, only about 2, but you could see the stress in the child. As I say, kind of broke my heart seeing that, because it is hard when a child is living in that kind of environment where they're picking up the stress from the parent. So Penny's saying, yes, that makes sense. So thanks for the feedback. And as I say, I see that more people have joined. Do feel free to say hello. Let me know where you are in the world. So let's talk. The fifth thing I want to talk about is the healing methods that Bessel van der Kolk believes are important. And Penny says, yes, that makes sense. I see it in me too. Okay, so that we'll come back to that. But he talks about a range of therapies that can help regulate the body from the inside out. So talking therapies are top down, and there are strategies which are bottom up. He also talks about the use of medication, and that medication can help people feel safe and regulated enough to begin to connect to their body. All right. Charlotte says, yes, I carry lots of tension in my face. Me too, Charlotte. Okay, so it's good to be aware of that. As I said, just describing that, dropping your shoulders, just checking your posture, just, maybe even giving yourself, maybe you could do this right now, just give yourself a little massage your face, massage around your eyes, massaging your ears. For some people, there's a film called, what's the film called? It'll come to me. It's about a French guy who's paraplegic. I think it's a true story, and he gets women I won't go into it too much, but to massage his ears, and he finds that incredibly sensual because obviously he's paraplegic, he's not got connection with the rest of his body. The name of the film will come. And Penny says, I carry it in my neck and shoulders. Yeah, and that's for me, that's a real telltale sign for me. When I notice tension in my spine and neck and shoulders, I realise I need to pause and tune in. Okay, so let's talk about some of the strategies that Bessel van der Kolk talks about. First is somatic practice. So, for example, yoga. This increases interoception, body awareness, and it helps restore connection to body, ownership of our body. Somatic experiencing. So gently uncovers. I've talked about this in other videos, so I won't go into it in too much depth. Check out my playlist. Gently uncovers and discharges stuck survival energy. Okay. So things like gentle movement, dance, drumming, breath work, these practices all bypass the thinking brain and can help regulate the nervous system through rhythm and movement. And, I was at this festival at the weekend, and there was this band called, I think, Public Service Broadcasting or something like that. And some of the music they were playing was very repetitive. It's kind of the stuff they play at raves. And I've never really been to a rave. I wasn't really a person who took drugs, but it was just very kind of hypnotic listening to this music. And I really got why people, enjoy this stuff, because you get lost in it. Okay, and that's without taking any drugs. All right. And the same, when I've done drumming, I did a drumming workshop years ago, and it was just very absorbing. You're just practicing these repetitive rhythms, and it gets you out of your head. All right, it can help regulate the nervous system. So there are brain-based approaches, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprogramming. And if you check out Paul McKenna talking about the Havening technique, which involves stroking your arms and also moving your eyes left to right. We know from research that that's what happens when we're sleeping, when we're processing things, that our eyes move, and that helps process our emotions. Okay, it's not something I'm trained in, but it's something I'm interested in training in, because it has been found to be helpful in helping people with trauma. I think if I remember correctly, it said it wasn't so helpful for people, for war veterans, but people with other trauma. I think 60% of them had improvements. Okay, so another strategy is neurofeedback. So this is a technique where you use tech and it gives you feedback, and it helps people learn how to regulate their nervous system. I was chatting to a therapist who used this technique, and it sounded very fascinating. I've not had personal experience of it, but actually, as I talk about it, I might think, actually, this is something I'm very interested to explore further, just to learn more about it. And it can help the brain shift out of survival mode. Okay, and he also talks about internal family systems. This helps us reconnect to the parts of us that have been overwhelmed or rejected, exiled. Again, very interesting area. We learned some of this kind of stuff when I trained as a hypnotherapist, and we use this approach. It's not exactly IFS, but I found that it is super helpful to help people become more aware and integrate the parts of themselves that are not integrated. I was going to say disintegrated. That's not the right word. Okay. Now, all of these things aren't necessarily quick fixes, but they offer sustainable ways of feeling safe in your body. And when safety is restored, the healing can happen. I can remember a time where I was quite young, and I had this very strange sensation of being totally aware of my whole body, and it completely freaked me out. What I realise now is that that was me being in a kind of grounded, centered, present state. But that was so alien to me because I was so used to being in my head, over worrying, overthinking about things, that it really was uncomfortable. Thank you, Sebastian. The name of the film is The Untouchables. Yeah, it's a fantastic film. It's in French subtitles, but it's absolutely hilarious and kind of life affirming. So I recommend it. So thanks, Sebastian, for reminding me of that. Okay, so the sixth point I want to make is that what this means for chronic illness, that these flare-ups, these reactions that we have, these triggers, these aren't signs that your body is failing you. Your body is trying to protect you. Okay? Your nervous system is incredibly, it's incredibly attuned. It lets you know when something doesn't feel right, when you don't feel safe, when you do feel safe, when you do feel good. All right? And the more we learn to see our nervous system as our ally, and rather than judging ourselves for reacting, for getting triggered, which is what I used to do, let me know if that's something you used to do. Put a yes in the chat, and I'll come to your question in a second, Penny. So your body is trying to protect you. It does want you to be safe. So it's letting you know when you don't feel safe. So it's important we judge ourselves, that we're curious and compassionate. Healing is about regulating, not pushing ourselves. Okay? So if you have the tendency to push yourself, just pop the word push in the chat. Restoring trust in your body is possible, even if it takes time. Okay? So recovery isn't just about taking drugs. It's about making choices. It's about connecting, regulating, including co-regulation. We heal best when we're in safe relationships. Whether it's connecting with friends and just, that feeling where you're just with people you feel comfortable with. You don't have to put on a front. You just allow yourself to be present, enjoy the moment. So push. I've got push. Yeah, so we can change that. Okay. I was someone who used to rush to do things because I thought my energy would run out. So I was preparing a meal. I would do it in a stress state, which just used up my energy, put my body back in that fight-flight state, in that fear state. So I had to train myself to do things more slowly, more mindfully, have more trust. Okay. Co-regulation may happen when you're hanging out with friends or family who you feel comfortable with, a support group, practitioner. Twice a month, I do resilience group coaching. And one of the things we do in that group coaching is we start the session by connecting to our body. So Penny's question is, which somatic techniques did you find helpful for your recovery? So one strategy is just connecting to your body. So let's do that right now for a moment, okay? So I invite you, only if it's safe to do so, to close your eyes. Obviously, don't close your eyes if it isn't safe to do so. I invite you just to take a breath, breathing in through your nose, into your belly. You might put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly so you can track the movement. And what we want to do is we're not breathing in our chest, we're breathing into our belly. So the movement is primarily in the belly. As you breathe in, the belly moves out. As you breathe out, the belly moves in. Okay? So you can do that for a few breaths. You just notice your breath. Notice breathing in. You might imagine the breath as a colour. Breathing out. So that's a very simple technique. All right? That is just a way of connecting to your body. You might just give yourself a hug. As I mentioned, Paul McKenna, just stroking your arms. Okay? I've literally had clients give themselves a hug or hug a pillow, and that's a way of just really connecting you might just gently, again, always do this within your current range. Maybe that was a Freudian slip. Current range is just gently move your body, shake your body, just in a way that feels really okay for you. Okay. And for instance, sometimes if I'm feeling dysregulated, if I'm feeling angry because of someone's behavior, I might just do that. Just shake the body a bit, move it around, swing my arms around, just connect with the body. I like this technique that I learned from a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner called, I'm really doing, Katie Brindle. You can find her on YouTube. And you're just connecting with your body from a Chinese perspective. When our muscles get tight, it stops the blood flow. When that happens, we're more likely to get dis-ease that can lead to disease, as Dorothy said. All right. So there's just some really simple strategies, but there are an absolute million. So find the strategies that work for you and practice them. You might need to mix it up a bit. But I do like doing Qigong. That's a way of connecting to your body. I've made a video about that, and I share in that video a 1-minute practice. And when I had ME/CFS, when I was feeling particularly fragile, I would just do that for 1 minute. You are very welcome, Penny. Penny says thank you so much. All right. So if you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed in your healing journey, The Body Keeps the Score is an important, powerful book. All right. It doesn't promise a cure, but it offers a kind of map. Okay. So it says that you're not broken. You're carrying a story that your body remembers. Healing starts when you start listening to your body, not to fix it, but to witness it with kindness. So really encourage you to read that book and explore some of the mind-body approaches mentioned. Go gently. Your body's carried a lot and you want to take care. It's not a kind of dive in head first. It's a gentle approach. Alan says, thanks, you are very welcome. And one of the things, when we do the resilience group coaching calls, there's no charge for that. You are welcome to make a donation, but no obligation. We start with connecting to our body. We had a call this morning. Today we talked a lot about dealing with being triggered by others, and you're able to access the recordings on lots of different topics. So if you'd like to join the resilience group coaching next session in a couple of weeks, then comment group below and I will share the link. So actually sometimes I need to put the link below the video because sometimes I can't see these comments. So Daria says, does the setback mean the body is integrating and healing, processing the stress energy? It can be, and I really encourage you to think about the language used. I made a comment about this on someone's post. Someone was talking about setbacks. People talk about relapses. What I would suggest you say is, I've had an increase in symptoms. And from the perspective, I've trained in something called the Mind-Body Reconnect. And from that perspective, we view symptoms as the emotional brain sending a signal that we're not meeting our needs. Okay? And I teach a very simple but powerful approach called the stepping stones. 3 steps to help you learn to connect to your body, listen to the emotional brain, process the message so that you can actually shift that stuck emotion or stuck sensation and symptom. So I am going to be in September starting a group. There's going to be a 12-week course learning the Mind-Body Reconnect. I've had permission to do the first group. So if you'd like to be part of that, put M for mother, B for Bertie, R for Romeo in the chat, and I will send you a video you can watch which will give you some insights into that approach, and people have found that video helpful. And if you decide you'd like to join the groups that's starting in September. I'll give you the details. So Sebastian says group as well. I will pop the link in below this video if I can't see your comments. Sometimes they disappear. I don't know why that happens. Dorothy says, thank you. We appreciate your videos and help. I no longer say crush. I say setback. I don't say symptoms. I say sensations. Fantastic. So that's, I actually advocate that. I do say to people, I find the word sensations is less emotive than symptoms. But, we can just recognise, I've got strong sensations at the moment. Okay, so thank you for that correction, Dorothy, because I do use that. Okay, I will, I think that's Penny. I will pop the link where you can watch the video about the Mind-Body Reconnect. And if you decide you're interested, send me a message and I'll tell you how you can join that group in September. So thanks everybody for joining. It makes it much more interesting for me. And I know I just only told you that I was going live at quite late notice. Busy day, busy week as well, because I had a few days off. So, but thanks for watching. Your input just makes this more interesting for me and makes it more, I learn from you as well. So I appreciate that. But dare to dream big dreams, okay? Keep taking steps, no matter how small. I do think that making progress, and recovering is possible. And, many people have recovered, all right? And it's not been random. And a lot of people, there might be other factors, but a lot of people say that learning to regulate their nervous system is a key part of that. So, Sebastian, you are very welcome. So until I see you next time, another book that I am going to review. These book reviews do seem to be popular. Is going to be Alan Gordon's The Way Out. So I am going to be on holiday next week, but I will aim to do a video of that book before I go away. And Dorothy says, I enjoy your live videos. You've helped me so much. Lovely to hear your feedback, Dorothy. So thanks for that. I really appreciate that. Lovely. I'm really happy that I've helped you. I really don't care if someone doesn't become a client. I want to share as much information on my channel to help people. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining. See you next time. Wishing you great health.